China is home to 1.4 billion people. That means about 1 out of every 5 people around the world lives in China. But the country is facing a population crisis.
The Chinese population shrinking for the first time since the Great Famine in 1961.
China's population could shrink by 48% between now and the end of the century.
China's population decline has really come faster than was expected. It could mean economic stagnation, and it could also mean that China may never eclipse the US as the world's largest economy.
To maintain its current population, every woman in China must give birth to 2 children in her lifetime. But China's fertility rate has dropped well below that threshold. Urban households have even lower fertility rates. Shanghai's fertility rate in 2022 was 0.7. That's lower than South Korea, the country with the world's lowest fertility rate.
In the past decades, China has really been dependent on this vast labor force for the economic boom. As this labor force is shrinking, will China still have the same driving force for its economic growth, but also for global economic growth?
China's working age population already started to contract around 2015 or 2016. In the next 3 decades, until 2050, the working age population can further drop by 300 million. In the longer term, we have fewer people working but supporting more people in the retirement. Less demand, there's less output. We're just entering such a vicious cycle.
We have the government think tank estimating that the main pension fund for urban workers will hit 0 by 2035. It could leave huge burdens for a lot of elderly people and their offsprings who are not taken care of by the social security system. Beijing really needs to not only shift its growth model, but also it needs to rapidly increase spending on pensions and healthcare. If it fails, it could mean economic stagnation, and it could also mean that China may never eclipse the US as the world's largest economy.
China's GDP growth can slow from 5% at present to like 2% in 30 years. So for those who are relying on China's demand, they have to prepare for slowing China economy. This also means opportunity for some emerging economies like India, who also want to grow at a fast speed, trying to gaining more share in the global economy. They still have a quite strong population growth, which can be an important driver for their GDP growth.
But for a long time, China wanted to keep its population growth under control. As a shortage of resources put pressure on the developing country, the government introduced a policy in 1980 that limits families to have just 1 child.
The government implemented the policy through fines. There's potential loss of jobs if you're a government employee, but also in many cases, forced abortions and sterilizations.
中国的传统文化当中有一句话叫不孝有三，无后为大。就是说，最不孝顺的一个行为呢，就是没有为家庭生育后代。那这个后代，女性的后代是不算后代的，因为儿子可以传承家庭的姓氏，可以继承家庭的财产。这样的传统文化会造成中国的男孩偏好。 在这些情况下呢，毕竟要生孩子的胎数少了，一些地方就开始了有了非法的鉴定胎儿性别。有一些女性呢，当她还是胎儿的时候，就被进行了性别选择性的流产。
The normal range for sex ratio at birth is between 103 to 107 male to 100 female. Since the 1980s, this ratio in China has stayed well above that. The most recent census suggests that there are over 32 million more men than women in China. With a lack of female population and decades of stringent birth control, the government had reduced the number of births in the last few decades by 400 million. But now, they're facing a tough challenge of reversing that.
These demographic challenges have attracted, attention from the highest levels, with President Xi saying that China is going to focus on boosting birth rates and also take a proactive response to the aging population. So the government has really reversed this one-child policy at a very rapid clip in 2016 and officially ended that policy in place of the two-child policy. And even 2 years ago, when we had then again the three-child policy, this has really done very little to put a halt to this very rapidly dropping fertility rate.
这里面很多时候看上去是一个个人的选择，其实它是一个个人在一个制度性和结构性的一个条件的制约下，他来考虑这样一点的。我最近看到一个帖子，就是一个女性，她就是算，她就说我每个月的收入是6000，但是如果我养一个孩子，她的衣食住行，她的营养，那每个月可能就是要花掉我的工资的一大半。那现在有的人就说，你上个幼儿园的学费可能相当于上一个大学的学费，就算是双职工的家庭，一个月要把一个人的收入拿去供养一个孩子的话，那这个对家庭也是一个很大的负担。我们刚才说的花销只是日常生活当中的一些花销，大家都知道中国房子的现在是天价，要靠正常的这个收入是不可能买房，所以一般的都是靠什么父母的那一代的一些积蓄啊，或者是其他的一些财产。我们看到有些地方出台了这个鼓励政策，比如说奖励几千块之类的，那他要算一算这几千块的奖励和我的终身的这样的一种付出，那他怎么选择
？China's government, especially in the very top echelons, are very much male-dominated. One criticism of some of these policies is that they just fall so woefully short and they are very male-centric. They're more superficial responses to very deeply entrenched social issues that women are demanding change.
现在我们可以看到越来越多的女性有这样的一种意识，在政策和法律的制定和修改上面去发出自己的声音。但是呢，我们也知道，在中国大陆的媒体呢，目前对这一块的那个表现还受到很多的制约，所以呢，在这方面的讨论和报道是非常不足够的。
To ensure that economic growth doesn't slow with this population drag, Beijing has some tools in its toolkit. It can raise retirement age. It can also encourage people to move from the rural areas into the cities. And it is already investing heavily in vocational education, as well as in automation and science and technology.
Population decline is a global issue. We're all preparing for a world with fewer population and fewer workers. China probably have, slowed much faster than other countries at a similar stage. But I think other economies, they are also seeing a slowdown in the growth. So in the longer run, it's not necessarily that when China slows, other economies will gain from China's decline.